So, kicking off this new retro code, we got Mamono Hunter Yoko, better known as Yoko Devil Hunter or Devil Hunter Yoko, for the Sega Mega Drive. Now, this is one of those girly platformer games which is based on an anime, but unlike most girly platformer games based on animes, this one is actually good. Very, very difficult, but good. And unfortunately, on this video capture which I did, the sound is out of sync. Sorry about that. I think my video capture card was having one of its moments, and decided to capture the audio completely out of sync with the video. Okay, so yeah. So first stage, we got Yoko is in the middle of God knows where, being attacked by all sorts of weird plants and locusts. Probably in some demon world. Now you may be thinking that the graphics don't look very good, and to be honest, they're not really that good. But this game is all about the gameplay. For example, on this section of the stage you got the wind blowing. I know it might look a bit tame now, but back then it was really good. And you have to be careful of which way you jump, because if you jump in the same direction as the wind, you're going to get blown straight off the platform and into death zone. Okay, so there you go, first boss is dead. First boss is actually quite easy, but all the other bosses are complete and utter bastards. You'll see what I'm talking about later on. So once completing a stage, you get a lovely little anime clip of Yoko herself. And on to stage 2 we go. Again, the graphics are looking a bit on the shitty side, but the music's really cool. I do honestly enjoy this music. Now the key to success in Yoko Devil Hunter is to keep your barrier around you at all times. If you don't have that barrier around you, you're gonna die very fast. The barrier will absorb very small projectiles, and also very useful to fire at enemies. Just get powered up there. Now without this barrier, you're gonna get hit from God knows what. Everything that comes at you is gonna hit you. Another thing you got to take into account with Yoko Devil Hunter is that you can't just go belting through the level. I mean, you know, running through the level as fast as possible. You've got to take it slowly. Just take it a little at a time and destroy what's in the way. Unlike those Mega Man or Rockman games, there's no respawning crap in this game. You kill something, it's dead. Even when you continue, it's still dead. It's the way it should be. So take your time and really hammer that attack button, and you should be able to survive most of the stages without getting killed. As you can see there, I'm going nuts on that attack button. Another thing you got to take into account with Yoko is the physics for the jumping. It's got that typical, once you jump and push in that direction, you're not going back. That's right, you can't actually turn or slow down in mid-jump, which can be a little bit tricky, especially when you got to jump from a small platform to another small platform. But it's all part of the charm. The game has a special charm which many games these days seems to be missing. Okay, so here's a little bit of a hint. If you want to kill this boss fast, get it to follow you very, very quickly. Then just smack down that attack button. You'll soon get his energy down. Also, get under him before he comes back down. Just repeat that, and you'll have that boss killed in a matter of no time. Now while Yoko Devil Hunter is a short game, It will take you from start to finish around about 30 minutes to complete it. It's only 5 levels in total. This being the last level is quite a challenge. It's actually quite a maze as well. But even though it is short, it's quite satisfying. Definitely one of the Mega Drive classics. If you can find it, I do recommend picking it up. Maybe a little bit expensive, but if you're after a good solid platformer with a lot of challenge, this is a title you definitely need to buy. Cisco Heats, one of Yoko's more famous arcade games, and another one of their crappy arcade games. Well, maybe it was pretty good back in the day, but can't say I really played it much back in 1990. Anyway, the idea of the game is pretty good. Take one of your 2 police cars, are they? Maybe fire engine cars, who knows? Anyway, you take one of them and race it down the streets of San Francisco. Great idea for the game. Good scenery, loads of hills for lovely big jumps, but it's a sprite-based game. Now I must admit, Yoko have done a very good job conveying the effect of going up and down hills with sprites. The actual 3D is quite impressive. Unfortunately, the game doesn't play very well. Your car controls really fidgety. In fact, you only have a choice of 2 cars. One is fast and controls absolutely awful, and the other one is really slow, but does actually turn around corners half decent. So basically the idea of the game is just race and race and race and make sure you get to the finish line before your opponent does. Very simple really. Or it would be simple if you could actually go in the direction in which you wanted to go in. As you can see, the car is just bouncing all over the place. It's uncontrollable, man. And these turns here, these 90-degree turns, are sort of done automatically. You don't really have much control over what's going on. Why is the road green? Well, that's a bit weird. So there you have it, Cisco Heats from Yoko. Nice idea on paper, bad idea in practice. Now that's the shite of the week. Hey, good old race driving, the follow-up to the complete shite, hard driving. Well, I'm being a bit harsh there because, to be honest, I do actually have a soft spot for this game and the original hard driving. Basically because it's my first memory of playing a racing game in the arcade. I remember asking my father for I think it was 20 pence back then, to play this racing game. It was actually hard driving, I think. And the steering wheel was getting dragged out of my hand all over the place. And my dad said, "You'll never be able to drive a car, son." Little does he know. Or little did he know back then, I should say. But yeah, I was that young I couldn't even keep the car straight because of the power steering on the wheel. But anyway, here we go with the Sega Saturn version of Race Driving. Now this was one of the very first releases for the Sega Saturn. And to give Time Warner some credibility, it does run at a solid 30 frames a second. It's extremely smooth. I would go as far as saying it was 60 frames a second, but I don't think it is. It's probably 30 frames a second, but it is solid. You do good old moo there. Now the thing that really puts this game off is the controls and the sense of speed. Apparently I'm doing around about 90, almost 100 miles an hour. That's about 160 kilometers an hour, and it doesn't seem like I'm going that fast. Which can bring some massive problems when you go to turn around the corner, because you just sort of skid right off it. Also, I think in this conversion, Time Warner really messed up the physics of the game. Just look at this. Yeah, I sort of just exploded. Now, this conversion of Race Driving does feature the original arcade tracks and what Time Warner call the real world tracks. Yeah, they look even worse than the arcade version. Basically, this is the same track which you just saw with really shitty texture mapping on it. It looks fucking awful. I prefer the original. Oh, I also must mention that this game runs in the Sega Saturn's highest resolution. That's another thing to point towards Time Warner's credibility. The controls are just so bloody awful. And you know what's even worse? It doesn't work with the analog control pad either. Okay, the analog control pad wasn't out back then, but the analog steering wheel was on its way. It doesn't work with it. No. So there we go. This week's shite of the month. Even though I don't seem as angry as I usually do. Because I got a bit of a soft spot for it, but no mistaking, this game is shite. So back in 1984, my parents bought me my very first computer. This, the Commodore Plus 4. I must have been about 8 or 9. Anyway, basically it's an upgraded version of a Commodore 16, and being that, it's compatible with all Commodore 16 software. Unfortunately, this meant that a lot of the games that were programmed for the Plus 4 were also programmed with the Commodore 16 in mind to make them cross-compatible, which means Commodore Plus 4 owners got shit like that. That was actually the Commodore 16 version of Commando, but luckily 2 years later a Plus 4 only version of Commando came out, and this is it. Looks just like the Commodore 64 version, doesn't it? And how does it play? Well, it plays quite well. Yeah, it's bloody hard as well, as you can see by the amount of times I'm dying. Another game that I used to love playing on my Commodore Plus 4 was Bumjack. Unfortunately, there was no Plus 4 only version ever made, so we got stuck with the Commodore 16 version. It's not bad. A lot more colourful than a Spectrum, put it that way. Yeah, game over. The very first game I ever did play in my entire life was this. This is Exorcist. Even though back then I had no idea what Exorcist was. In fact, I couldn't even read the title of the game. I used to just call it Sparky. Basically, the idea of the game is to walk around and light up the maze. Once the maze is lit up, you can shoot the ghosts, I suppose, or demons, with the lightning bolt. Do that and you'll open up a gateway to the next stage. And then just do the exact same thing. When you're 8 years old, or back in the 80s when you were 8 years old, this was a bloody good game. Okay, just gotta shove a lightning bolt up this guy's ass, and that should be it. Oh, it's gone. Better get it again. Come here. Yes, that's got him. The way of the exploding fist. A very, very good karate sim. And here we go with Pengo. There are actually two versions of Pengo for the Commodore Plus 4, a C16 compatible version, and this version which was written with the 64 in mind. Sorry, not the 64 in mind, the Commodore Plus 4. In fact, I do think it is a conversion of the Commodore 64 version. I'm not too sure, I have to check on that. I know, I think it's a hell of a lot harder than the version on Sega Ages for the Sega Saturn. I know one of the very first games I used to play, this is Treasure Island. In fact, this game actually came with the Commodore Plus 4 on a cassette tape along with a lovely big map. And the idea of the game is quite simple, you just walk around from screen to screen, find the hints or the items which you need, and make your way to the top of the world. Looks extremely basic these days, but I was always addicted to this when I was 8 years old. Now there should be a sword around here. Yep, there it is. And we'll just go back up there and shoot that guy swinging the sword about. Yeah, now we can get past. Here's one called Tutti Frutti. I remember my mother took us to the newsagents to buy, I don't know, some newspapers or whatever. And I used to stand there looking in the £1.99 game corner. And I always used to keep looking at this one. And in the end, my mother actually bought it for me. Very simple, you just walk around and collect the fruits and drop the apples on the bad guys' heads. And yes, the Commodore Plus 4 could do 3D. Sort of. Here's a Plus 4's rendition of Star Wars Arcade. Hey, it's just as good as the 32X version. A little bit slower, but yeah, basically it's just as good to play. And we'll just leave you with two karate games which I used to play quite a bit as well. This is Yeha Kung Fu, conversion of the Konami arcade game. Unfortunately, it's a pretty shitty conversion, made with the Commodore 16 in mind, so it doesn't make any use of the Commodore Plus 4's power. Yeah, load the bollocks. And finally, I'll leave you with Kung Fu Kids. Whether or not this is based on the Item arcade game, I do not know. It certainly looks like it is. A shameless ripoff. But I tell you, I used to love playing this. apparently this game is a polygon cartoon, if you believe what it says at the beginning of the introduction. So this is Welcome House. You could sort of say it was a survival horror, minus the horror. In fact, it's comedy, or so it's meant to be. So you could call it a survival comedy. So basically our hero, Keaton, has gone to his uncle's house, but unfortunately for Keaton, his uncle is a right fucking twat and likes to play practical jokes. Don't you just hate those type of people? Anyway, so Keaton, after getting to his uncle's house, finds out that his Volkswagen Beetle falls to bits. So he goes into the uncle's house and it locks down. Yes, he can't get out because all the doors and all the windows are locked. Yep, you see, can't get through that door either. So you have to go and search for keys. Oh, there's an open window. Let's make a dash for it. Don't forget it's a comedy game. Ha 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 ha, didn't see that coming. So yeah, basically the plot of the game is just to walk around and look for keys, solve simple puzzles. That's it. Oh, how cliche. April 1st. So we've got the white key here, so it must belong to the white door. No. Actually, I was searching around for hours on end trying to find out where the hell this white key goes, checking every single white door. Because I did actually have a red key before the white key, and it worked in the red door, as you'd expect. But no, this white key actually works in the brown door. Go and figure, eh? Ooh, I think I'll have a snack. Nope, fuck that, I'm going into a secret room. So yeah, a lot of the puzzles do seem to be a bit on the ambiguous side, you know, a bit like, what the hell? But that isn't so bad. The main problem with this game is the fact that it controls really nasty. Now, unlike Biohazard or Resident Evil, the backgrounds are actually made of polygons, whereas the first Resident Evil games were all digitized CG stills. But this is real, full polygon generated areas. Now, unfortunately, because of that, the game actually plays on a grid. You didn't see that coming, did you? Yeah. Which means basically you can only move left, right, up and down. You can't actually turn around. And here's something I don't get. Just jump over the fence, you soft bugger, if you want to get out. So yeah, as I was saying, the controls are a little bit fiddly and it can lead to a bit of annoyance here and there. For example, you want to walk up to a couch or a bed or a chair, and you end up walking onto it because the character seems to take one more step than you actually want him to. Another thing is you can't actually back off objects, you've got to turn around and walk off the object forward, which can be quite annoying also. But you know, if those little niggles don't really seem to bother you, then Welcome House could be an interesting and also a fake comedy survival game or adventure game. Personally, it's not for me, but I'm sure somebody out there would like it. Some crazy paving style transparencies there. Good old Saturn, trying the impossible and making it look like ass. Oh well. So back in 1992, Sega had this lovely idea for the arcade scene. They wanted to make a fully interactive, animated beat-em-up. Well, the technology was sort of there because Sega were the kings and have been for quite a long time of arcade hardware, until recently when everyone just makes bloody PC-based arcade hardware. But anyway, they brought the arcade gamers of Japan and later the West. This is Arabian Fight. And you got to admit, it does look very nice. Even today, it looks gorgeous. But don't forget, this came out in 1992. when we were playing on Mega Drives and Super Nintendos or Super Famicoms. So while the game is a standard beat 'em up, it does have a few little extras in there, such as the ability to do a couple of combinations and call up a magical genie to let loose with a bit of magic. As you can see, we just did a lovely magic there. Unfortunately, the biggest downfall of this game is the collision detection. It's extremely off. You can be miles away from a character and actually hit them, or get hit by a character which is miles away from you. Also, you can actually play on any field in the game, whether it be the foreground or the background. And you can have a character in the background and you can actually hit them if you're in the foreground. Sometimes the collision detection is really, really dodgy. And unfortunately, this does affect the gameplay. It's not really possible to sort of make a strategy of being in one place and attack an enemy in a certain manner. Basically, you just got to go in there and smack the crap out of the attack button and hope for the best. I'm surprised this never got ported to the Sega Saturn. Probably would have been quite popular if they tightened up the controls. I sort of do like that magic. It's a bit useless, mind you. Ah, that does look good.